I find that when we're asking for affirmation from nature, there's something inside of us that already knows the answer. The earth wants to empower you to remember that your intuition is a compass you can trust. Hello and welcome back to Remember Why You're Here, a podcast for seekers and sensitives where you can relax, receive, reconnect to yourself, and remember the most important thing of all, why you're here. I'm Asia Suler, and in this episode today, I felt really inspired to revisit talking about this concept of nature as divination deck. Nature and our interaction with the living world as actually the place where we're meant to receive divinatory information, the kind of support, affirmation, and guidance that we need in our lives. And I felt particularly really inspired to revisit this now because I had an incredible experience the other day that had to do with receiving a sign from the living world. And it touched me so much that I really haven't been able to stop thinking about it since. So I just wrapped up my spiritual school for sensitives, Earth Angel School, and it was an incredible experience with so many amazing people. And I'm still processing all the feelings I have around it ending because it was just such a beautiful experience. But one of our last classes was called The Miracle. And we were talking about miracles, the anatomy of a miracle in one's life, how to call miracles in, how to recognize miracles in life. And the day before I taught the class, I went for this walk. And I go on this walk every day outside my house. It's like my path, my meditative path. I take this little walk every single day. And so I was walking up this path and I was ducking under a tree that had fallen in a storm not so long ago. And as I come out the other side, I look down and I see this owl feather on the ground. This barred owl feather. And I just completely stopped in my tracks and began crying pretty much immediately because this was one of the most powerful messages I could have received. And here's why. 18 years ago, when I was in the midst of dealing with my first experience with long-term chronic pain, I was opening up to this whole numinous experience of reality, really starting to see and understand that the living world was alive, was sentient, that we're here to be in co-creation, that healing happens from being in a relationship and being open to the ways in which your spirit is so much wider than you realized, and the spirit of this world is so much bigger and so much deeper than the version of reality that we've been handed. And I remember I was thinking about all these things, this huge psychic opening that I was having through living in the depths of chronic pain. And I remember asking for a sign. If this is real, if it's true that consciousness is creating reality, that, that the living world is alive, that miracles are possible, that my healing is possible, send me an owl feather. And I remember thinking to myself, I have no idea why I chose owl feather, except for the fact that it was like, I've never found one before. I've never seen one before. I don't know how I would find one. And it wasn't much longer after that, maybe days even, where I went for a walk, and I was in college at the time, and I went for a walk and found on the road, laying right on the road, pointing in the direction I was going, an owl feather. A barred owl feather in particular. And I picked this feather up and I felt with my whole body this sense of profundity, this sense of a prayer being answered. And that moment really changed the trajectory of my life. And if you've ever been in an in-person class with me, and there's been an altar that we've had, like when I used to teach my winter intuition school retreats, you've probably seen me put that exact feather on the altar because it was such confirmation of trusting my intuition, trusting this opening, trusting the messages I was receiving from the living world. So fast forward to just a few weeks ago, walking this trail, really hearing and answering the call of teaching this school for sensitives, this call that's really been in my life for 10 years now. And I was about to teach this class on miracles, and I find this owl feather in my path. This is the only other owl feather I've ever found in my entire life from the same kind of owl, pointing in the direction that I was walking once more. And it just moved me beyond measure. And I shared this story with the group in Earth Angel School and cried because I just couldn't have received a more beautiful confirmation of all the things that I'm working on, all the prayers that I'm putting out into the world right now. And it's just really inspiring me to revisit this recording that I made several years ago around working with nature as a divination deck. So in this recording, I talk about the ways to communicate with nature, specific techniques, practices of communicating with nature, of really asking for signs, asking to receive the kind of divinatory information you need to take the next step in your life. So often we are walking around with these big prayers. And I really believe that the earth wants to answer these prayers, wants us to feel heard, wants us to have the affirmation, the support, the perspective that we need to keep going. So here's the rub, though. Here's the missing piece, is we have to ask. We so often have to ask, and we forget that, right? We forget that the best way to get an answer is to ask a question. And the beautiful thing is we are here among the great sentience of this world, of all the elders that comprise this planet. And we are here among these wisdoms, and we can ask these questions and we can receive answers. And I have found that through working with nature as an oracle, I tend to receive answers in the most beautiful, the most poignant, the most perfectly timed ways. So if you are sitting with a big question right now in your life, or there's something you need affirmation around, then keep listening, because this recording will help guide you through ways to ask these questions and receive the answer that you need. So let's listen.
You've probably heard of tarot cards or runes, but you may not know that nature is the original divination deck. You can receive signs, messages, and answers directly from nature. You just need to ask. People have been looking to nature for signs and omens since time immemorial. In every culture around the world, there have been practices of looking to nature to receive information and divinatory guidance. Whether that's looking to the pattern of birds in the sky, the swirl of tea leaves in your cup, or the way stones end up being placed by a flood tide. All of these are patterns that can be read in nature that can give us answers to the questions that we hold most dear. One of the oldest divination systems on Earth, the I Ching from China, was said to originate from looking at the patterns on turtle shells. So the hexagrams for the I Ching are said to have been given to humanity through these patterns on the turtle shell. Today, many practitioners who use the I Ching use it by throwing coins, and that's how we receive the different hexagram combinations. But to begin with, practitioners used yarrow stalks from nature. So this is just one example of the way in which divination as we know it, as a system, as a practice, arose originally from the natural patterns and prophecies that exist here on the earth. Runes, which come from the Germanic tradition, are said to have been given to humanity through their perception and their interaction of engaging with the patterns in nature. Some practitioners refer to runes as mimicking the growth patterns of trees and even the patterns within our own circulatory system. So everything comes back to nature when we look at every pattern on Earth, but divination too can be traced back to these roots. So you only need to ask, and the earth will show you what you need to see. Now, where the true genius of divination comes in is your interpretation. So the earth will show you messages and symbols and omens that make sense for you. So be empowered in this concept that you are your own interpreter, and you will receive what it is that you can perceive and turn into meaning. The most important thing is just to get really intentional with what it is you want to ask. And it's best to avoid questions that have a yes or no answer or a specific time frame. Leave them a little more open-ended and you'll get a much richer answer in return. So here are some simple practices that you can use to start interacting with nature as a divination tool. The first practice is simply to ask for a sign. So this is simple, but I find it works every time. Gather your question up, make it crystal clear, and then ask for a sign in nature for affirmation. Often with asking for a sign, we're going to disregard this rule of yes or no questions because here we're asking to receive a specific affirmation or confirmation. So when you ask for a sign, this can be a yes or no question, something like, should I take this job and move to a new country? Now, when you come up with the question, when you formulate it, then you're also going to ask for a sign. And I like to just kind of leave my awareness open and see what sign comes to me rather than specifically choose something with my mind. I like to open my heart and see what does the sign want to be. That sign could be a bluebird. It could be a specific kind of tree. So once you ask for that sign, though, you want to be open to all the ways in which that sign might come to you. So it might be out walking in nature. The sign also might come to you through something that you're watching on TV or a card that someone sends you in the mail. In reality, everything is nature. So nature will find a way to get this sign to you. I find that it's helpful to often give a time frame. So to ask to see the sign within the next week, for example. And then if you don't see the sign, that's your sign as well. Most of the time, though, I find that when we're asking for affirmation from nature, there's something inside of us that already knows the answer. And so you will just get confirmation for what your intuition is likely already telling you. The earth wants to empower you to remember that you yourself have these divinatory abilities, and your intuition is a compass you can trust. The next practice is called story walks, and this is a bit more interpretive. So with a story walk, you're still going to get intentional about that question, but you want this question to be more open-ended, something that can leave space for a story to come in. So for example, you might ask, what can I expect? Or what should I prepare for on this new trip I'm about to take? So this gives a big canvas for the earth to respond to you. And then go for a walk. So then take 20 minutes, half an hour, or even longer in nature to go for a walk. This could be pristine nature. This could be a park. This could be walking around your neighborhood. But tell yourself as you go for this walk that everything you experience on that walk is going to be information that's going to come in and show you the story of what you might anticipate in response to your question. So be open to what kind of experiences you have on this walk, and really just stay in tune and in touch with your body, because your body will tell you, is this a sign or was this just a random thing that happened? And as always, just approach it with a sense of curiosity and above all, humor. So none of this is going to be a doomsday omen or something you need to be scared about, because the reality is that this sense of humor is something that the earth plays with often. So even if you have something challenging or worrisome come up on this walk, really try to have a sense of humor about it and ask yourself, what is the blessing that is coming from this message? What gems of wisdom can I take from this experience or this sign that can be integrated to actually create more wholeness and understanding in my life? So here's a few more divination methods that are traditional in nature and have a long history here on Earth. So the first one is scrying. So scrying is the practice of looking into a reflective surface and seeing what images may arise. So you can scry in a pond, you can scry in a bowl of water, any kind of reflective surface. You could scry in the reflective surface of a stone. One method for scrying is to take a ceramic bowl and hang it over a candle until you get enough soot on the bottom of the bowl that you can then put water in it and create your own black mirror for scrying into. There's many different practices for scrying, but if you feel called to this sort of reflective peering, then you might be able to receive some really potent information from this practice of scrying. scrying. So when you scry, just really open your imagination to see what visuals might come up. And as always, stay in tune with your body, because your body will tell you that this is valuable information or this is something you can simply let float on by. Another practice is geomancy, and this is just looking at nature and the patterns in nature to receive the answer to your question. So geomancy can be performed with sand or soil in the debris left behind from a flood. So get creative here with these concepts of what do you want to look at when you're engaging with this concept of geomancy. So you might even leave something out overnight in your garden and come back the next day and see how it shifted or changed. Those shifts and change can be an answer to your question. The more you can open up your imagination and your awareness, the more rich information you're going to receive. And the last very traditional practice is casting. So this is generally the throwing of items or the casting of items onto the ground or onto a surface and then reading the patterns that you see there. So some traditional things for casting include kernels of grain or corn, stones, or bones. Now, this is highly interpretive, of course, right? So you're really going to have to put on your thinking cap, your poet's cap. But again, trust what comes to you. Trust what you feel in your body. The more you can drop out of your mind and into the somatic experience of your body, the more your body will tell you, yes, this is something to pay attention to. Yes, this interpretation makes sense for me. Because at the end of the day, all of these divinatory omens are coming in to affirm your intuition, what the part of you that is nature already knows to be true. So if you're ready to deepen your relationship with nature and be able to gaze into the divinatory reflection of this world, then definitely check out my book, Mirrors in the Earth. The book is a series of essays based on different ecological processes, plants, and stones that are messages from the natural world designed to help you see yourself, to understand and accept yourself for who you are, and really begin to embody your gifts in this world. And if you want even more support on this journey of learning about your gifts, definitely head on over to my website and check out the Earth Healing Archetypes quiz. This quiz will help you recognize your specific earth healing archetype, the archetype in nature that you are here to embody. And this archetype will give you valuable information about how your gifts are meant to be translated into this world. If the archetype resonates with you, you can also sign up for a totally free class all about this specific archetype and what it means to be embodying this archetype in the world. So now I'd love to hear from you. Have you tried any of these divinatory practices before? What kind of messages have you received from nature? And I would love to hear what divinatory blessings have come in for you.
It always helps me to be reminded of all of this. And I need reminders too. I need reminders that it's possible to ask, that actually the world wants me to ask, and that the answers are there, that there is a response coming from the earth, and this response is one of comfort and one of affirmation and one of guidance, and that's available for us. So if you end up doing any of these practices and you do have an experience, leave me a voice note. Tell me about it. And if you're feeling inspired and you have a moment, maybe you were driving and then you pulled over, you're like at your house, or you're in a moment where you're on break from cooking whatever you're cooking, and you have a moment to give this podcast a rating or a review, it would just mean so much to me. It is one of my favorite things to do, to read your words and to really receive that kind of oracular affirmation. So there was this one review the other day that was such a gift, and coincidentally, it was called Truly a Beautiful Gift, and this is from Robin. And the review says, I find myself looking forward to every Tuesday evening when I tune in for Asia's weekly podcast release while making dinner. Asia gently guides, encourages, and shares her wisdom, all while being so kind and genuine and relatable. Every single episode has been an incredible synchronicity with my life, and I come away from each episode feeling uplifted and more connected to my wider self, to the natural world, and to life as a whole. Thank you for this beautiful podcast. And thank you, Robin. I first read this when I was on vacation with my family at the beach, And I like held the phone to my chest and I was like, Mom, listen to this. I had to read it out loud to my family. So beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for the gift of that review. And thank you for the gift of your presence here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for inviting me into your day in the way that you have today. And may the questions that you carry be answered. May you receive what you need to keep putting one foot in front of the other, or to even have these miraculous leaps in your own understanding of yourself and what's possible for you in your life. Because the deep sentience of the earth wants to support you, wants to be there for you, wants to help you remember that thing that opens up all possibilities, that thing that gives you the reason to keep going, that thing that is the most important thing of all, remembering why you're here.